Hello everyone, Jessica Ann here with Rebekah, aka Car Chick. We are still here at Girls Garage. It is day 9.
Very exciting.
Certainly feeling it, but I'm gonna be sad when it's over, I think. What are we gonna do afterwards? So you saw us in the last episode. We talked about our test drive with Volkswagen. We covered some quick maintenance tips because we realized that in LA we drive under extreme conditions. And today we have a really exciting little demo for you. We'll be talking about the drive belt.
Yes.
That's what we're looking at here, right?
That's right.
Okay. So this is a drive belt, but actually this one is a serpentine belt.
That's correct.
So tell us the difference between a drive belt and a serpentine belt.
So a serpentine belt, if you can see right in here, typically has these grooves this way. Most of the time, a drive belt will be a solid piece of rubber.
Okay, got it. And where does this even live in your engine?
So what's interesting about any drive belt system is that it's driving something, right? So I'm going to start at the base. The base is the crankshaft. The crankshaft always is turning once the vehicle is running. So this is where the momentum goes to move the belt. And then as we go up, we're going to see different components that it's driving. And in different cars, it'll be different components. So this is a very generalized statement.
Okay.
So tell me, what's the next thing that you see there?
So we have the belt tensioner.
Right.
Okay.
What do you think that means?
It creates this tension that then moves all the parts?
It actually holds the belt on.
Okay.
So that it can move but stay tight. Otherwise it will fly off.
Got
right?
it.
So that's great. I love asking you questions.
I know, I'm a little nervous, but
don't be nervous at all. And so then one of the things it might drive up here is the power steering pump.
Okay.
And obviously that has to do with us being able to steer the vehicle, right?
Yes, without too much effort.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't want to be driving a tractor. We would like to be able to drive a car easily.
Yes.
And then what's over here?
The alternator.
The alternator. So the alternator is what creates power for our vehicle to run. All the electronic stuff as well. We need electricity for that, so it's alternating current.
Very familiar with this. Mine actually was broken and I had to go and lug one home from O'Reilly's. I walked and I carried it home and brought it to the mechanic and he dropped it in, but I'm familiar with this.
That's awesome. And so then what's the thing that we have here?
So this is the idler pulley.
Right. So in most vehicles, you're also going to have not only the tensioner assembly, but you're going to have an idler. So everything in our body and most things in our vehicles are balanced, right? So we want it to be balanced. So we have just a little bearing for it to drive around so that it helps it. So it's not all tight on one side.
Yeah.
It has an opposing thing to stabilize it. So, and that's really the simplicity of a drive belt. Now,
the water pump.
Oh, the water pump. So thank you so much. So on some vehicles, the water pump is driven by the drive belt or serpentine belt, and on some it's driven internally underneath the timing cover. So on this particular example, the water pump is driven by the external belt.
Okay. Got it. And so would some cars have both a drive belt and a serpentine belt?
Yes. So you may have one serpentine belt, and again, that has little grooves in it like this. That would drive everything but, say, the power steering pump may be driven by a drive belt. Or the alternator may be driven by a drive belt. Or how about the AC compressor, which we're not showing here, that might be driven separately by a drive belt.
Got it. Okay. And so as far as maintenance goes, how often is
a great question.
Replaced?
A great question. So we have to look at that by age and by look. So if you're anything rubber, if it's over 5 years old, may be cracked, and we don't like that. We don't want you to have, particularly if you only have one belt that drives everything. If it breaks, you're stuck on the side of the road. So we don't like that.
Right.
So one of the other things we can do is, and we'll show you a graphic later, is that you can see inside if you have any, this is nice and soft, we can feel this.
Yeah.
And again, we don't have scratch and sniff yet or feeling, but we will one day. It looks great. It's nice and soft and pliable.
But you would smell this?
No, you can't smell. I was kidding.
To test the rubber?
But you could feel it.
Yeah.
And so it's nice and pliable. If it's really baked, that's not good.
Okay.
Or if it has cracks in it, we don't want that. So this isn't a crack, that's a groove.
Got it.
Particularly on these type of groove belts, you may see shiny spots, like little sparkles. We don't want sparkles on there. That means there's a hot spot, and it could break.
I mean, sparkles are great in life in general, but not on your drive belt.
That's right. So we'll show that. We'll actually, in another episode, we'll get some bad belts and we'll show you what they look like.
Okay, and how much is a cost to fix the drive belt and serpentine belt?
So the interesting question that you raised is it's different on every car.
Right.
What we said was sometimes you only have one belt, sometimes you might have 3 belts. So the labor component is going to be different and the cost of the parts. So on some vehicles it's very easy to change the belt and it might be, $50 for the serpentine belt and the labor because it's so simple. And some it may be $300.
Yeah.
You may have 3 belts. So you should shop around for something like that.
That's really good to know because I think for me, as soon as I hear belt replacement, I think it's in the hundreds of dollars. And we'll talk about the timing belt next, but that's something that I think I need serviced fairly soon, this being a really, old car.
Right.
But when I hear belt, I think it's expensive.
Well, it can be, the labor can be very easy or very difficult.
Yeah,
and typically it's
car.
the labor that changes a lot.
Right.
Not necessarily, for example, if you have one serpentine belt on a Mercedes, a newer Mercedes, it may be $80 for that belt because there's only one. And you may have an older vehicle that has 3 belts, which is probably between $70 and $80 for those 3 belts.
Got it.
So the parts are around that. But on much older cars, it might be $20 for a very good quality belt.
That's good to know. And then when you get your drive belt replaced, what about all the other components? Like, are you doing all of it at once?
That's such a great question. So it's not the components that need to be changed. Typically, when you're changing a drive belt, it's that the belt is old and needs to be changed.
Okay.
However, we have the two bearings, the idler and the tensioner, and we should always look at them and see, once the belt is off, we spin them and listen for any noise because it's a bearing, and we want to change that while that's off to incorporate 2 parts. We want to charge labor one time for 2 jobs if we can.
Yeah.
So we will check that. We also, this is all smooth, but if you can, I don't know if you can see it here.
Yeah.
Actually, you can't see it, but there's grooves. There's grooves in there.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that those grooves are free of debris before we put on the new belt.
Yeah.
So.
And this is a really smart tip that Becca told me is have them check these too, because sometimes you never know, they might just change out your belt and then a week later these give and it's a whole nother fix.
Right.
And they could have just done it in one fell swoop.
Right.
So that was a really excellent tip.
Thank you. So ask your mechanic if you want someone else to do it. Ask them, how are you going to do this job? I think that's probably the best question we can always ask.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we need to know about drive belts? I feel like that was a great overview. I feel a little bit more comfortable. So this is on the outside of the engine.
That's correct.
Okay.
I would say one more tip. If you have the choice to buy a better belt, quality belt, buy that. Yeah. So that you're not paying again for that labor cost to go out sooner.
And I think that's also a really valuable tip is, for me, I like to liken it to buying better made clothes, better made products for your skin. You're making that investment. Your clothes will last longer.
Right.
It will help, your hair treatment or your skin treatment to invest in better products. Why not invest in the car parts as well?
That's right.
It will last longer.
You're right.
It's just a fact. So, okay, well, thank you, Becca.
Thank you.
I feel really comfortable now. I know more about drive belts, and I won't be fearful next time I hear that I need a drive belt replacement. So, thanks.
Wonderful.
All right, we're going to move on to timing belts.
Wonderful.
Bye.